of her speaking about Caitlin Clark in this specific clip right here.
Is it some of the toxicity good, though? Because here's what I'm going to say, right? Yeah. Men are way pettier than women, right? Y'all got this let's stick together thing down way better than we do. You can separate us easy. You tell this one he can make more. If you leave this one behind, they're going to leave you behind. Yeah. There's always been that level when it was the Kobe and LeBron puppets, right? Or, you know, Michael Jordan and the Pistons, like all of those things, Magic versus Bird, like that level of competition, that level of we got to pick one.
Breanna Stewart gave a wide-ranging interview that touched on the Clark-Reese dynamic and, more substantively, offered a detailed account of where CBA negotiations stood from the player's perspective and how the player base genuinely views Caitlin Clark's role in the league's current moment. On the topic of rivalry and friction within the sport, Stewart framed the tension around Clark and Reese not as a problem to be solved, but as a natural byproduct of a league finally developing the kind of star power that drives sustained viewership. The comparison she reached for was instructive: Magic versus Bird, Jordan versus the Pistons. The LeBron-Kobe debates rivalries that carved the fan base in half and made people feel personally invested in outcomes. Her argument was that if the WNBA wants to occupy the kind of cultural space that other major leagues hold, it needs stars who generate that level of passionate, divided response.
Like that level of competition, that level of we got to pick one is what makes fans, right? It's what makes the game. Don't you think in a way it's good that the WNBA is getting to the point where they're building enough stars where people are like, I'm drawing my line in the sand with her. And I'm going to watch her every time because I want more people to watch her game than watch her game.
Sometimes players were having a hard time, like kind of adjusting to having all this, you know, good energy, but also you have some negative energy on social media and stuff like that.
Both Clark and Reese, in her view, have demonstrated the ability to absorb that pressure without letting it alter their approach to the game. Some players have struggled to adjust to operating under that kind of constant scrutiny, but Stewart's position was clear. If the goal is to compete for the visibility and resources that come with being a Premier League, the negative attention comes with the territory and has to be accepted alongside the positive. The more substantive portion of the conversation centered on CBA negotiations. Stewart was candid about the timeline. The interview was filmed the same day she was heading into a meeting with league representatives and the ownership group.
Energy on social media and stuff like that. But if we want to be in this class that we haven't been, or the space that we haven't been before, as well as you take the good, you need to be able to take the bad. Because whenever they're kind of going in the negative direction, like LeBron, you see the hate, right? But you also know a lot of people love him.
Yep. I do. That's my dog. I think he's dope.
But it's like you have to be able to take both.
Right.
If we want to be in this space where we're getting all the things we want, you have to be able to take both.
Yep.
And that's
the 17 to 18-month negotiation process had come down to the final weeks before training camp was set to begin, with the players having authorized a strike vote as a last resort if talks broke down. The central breakthrough she identified was the move to a revenue-sharing model. Regardless of the exact percentage ultimately agreed upon, the structural shift to rev share represented a fundamental change in the relationship between players and the league. The debate at that stage was not whether players would participate in revenue growth, but at what rate.
Both. Yep. And that's just the way it is. And like, don't let it rattle you. So I think that Angel, Caitlin, those two especially, like they don't let it rattle them. Yep. They know that they're like really elevating the game, and not everybody's gonna love them, not everybody's gonna hate them.
So you guys heard her right there. She said everybody ain't gonna like Caitlin, bruh, and everybody ain't gonna love who she is. Now, she went in grave detail about the CBA negotiations as well. Let's pull this up.
With the league's media rights deals bringing in figures that would have been unimaginable a decade ago, that percentage debate carries enormous long-term financial consequences. Stewart also spoke to Nafisa Collier's public statement at the end of the previous season, the moment where Collier laid out in specific terms what players had been told directly about the league's financial position and how that compared to what was actually happening. Stewart described that moment as critical for shifting the tone of negotiations. Collier's credibility as a co-founder of Unrivaled gave her commentary on league finances particular weight.
In grave detail about the CBA negotiations as well. Let's pull this up and let's listen to Breanna Stewart, because this was actually filmed the day of Venom actually catching up with her. Shout out to Venom. If you guys haven't subscribed to him, go subscribe. He's down there
tell your own story and not have people see you as this victim, but see the strength in which you presented. I believe there are so many women who can benefit from that sort of strength. I mean, it's difficult to transition out of that when you're having a conversation, but I want to fast forward to now.
The message it sent was that players understood how businesses operate and were no longer willing to accept explanations that did not hold up to scrutiny. On the question of why someone in Stewart's position financially secure with a Supermax contract, her own signature shoe, and extensive brand partnerships would remain deeply invested in a fight that does not materially affect her own situation, her answer was straightforward. The negotiation was never primarily about players at her level. It was about veteran players without endorsement deals, without NIL money from college, without the commercial profile that makes their financial future secure regardless of what the league pays.
Forward to now, and speak of professional adversity, right? The WNBA has always sort of been continuing or sort of fighting to show its validity, right? The excitement that you guys bring in the game, the skill level in which you play with, the entertainment value of it. And then now you're going at it with trying to negotiate a CBA based on where the WNBA game is today.
The generation of players who built the WNBA before the current revenue boom arrived without the safety net that today's college stars carry into the league. That is the group the CBA fight was actually being waged for, according to Stewart, not the superstars who were already going to be taken care of. Team USA secured another victory in World Cup qualifying, but the manner of it raised questions that the final scoreline does not fully answer.
Trying to negotiate a CBA based on where the WNBA game is today, where the game has grown. What do you see as some of the biggest obstacles between yourselves and the owners that has to be worked out in order for you guys to get back on the court?
So, all transparency, we have a CBA meeting today with the league. So at 4 o'clock, me and a few EC members, executive committee members, are going to go and meet the league and their LRC, which is their ownership group.
The winning margin was 30 points, but the middle two quarters told a different story. USA outscored their opponent by just 2-2, 19 inches one period and 1-9, 15 inches another. The first quarter cushion was the difference between a comfortable result and something far more uncertain. The quality of basketball on display during those stretches was genuinely difficult to watch.
Group. And I think the biggest thing is fighting for our worth. And that's something that we've been doing since the beginning. The league is young. The league is 30 years young. But the growth that we've made has been unlike any other. It's literally been skyrocketing. So we want to be able to really take advantage of that and make sure that we're not the ones getting left behind anymore, if that really makes sense. And I think there's a lot of ways that
Caitlin Clark did not start for the third consecutive qualifying game. That decision continued to drive the overwhelming majority of conversation around the team, and for good reason. Clark finished with 12 points, 5 assists, and a plus-minus of +2.7, the highest on the roster in that game by a clear margin.
Everybody noticed. Paige Beckers, 12 points. I got to tell you, if the ball goes to Paige Beckers, forget about it. She's not going to pass it to nobody. That's where the ball goes to die. Kaylee Copper, 15 points, 1 rebound. And Caitlin Clark, 12 points, 5 assists in the game. And she had a +27. She led everybody in plus-minus in this game. And no, she
was, statistically, the most impactful player on the court during the minutes she was in it. Kaylee Copper started and finished with 15 points and 1 rebound. Paige Buchers contributed 12 points.
In plus-minus in this game. And no, she did not start yet again. Just to check this out, these two middle quarters were ugly. 22 points to 19 points. 19 points to 15 points. This game, look, I understand it was a 30-point victory, but there were 2 quarters where it was really, really competitive. And wow. So, Caitlin Clark, let's check it out right here.
The on-ball play from Clark when she did get her opportunities showed no signs of rust. A pull-up three from distance converted without hesitation. A drive into the lane, drawing contact and finishing.
Caitlin Clark, let's check it out right here. Kaylee's going to throw the ball over to Caitlin. And Caitlin's going to drive back in the lane after the pass back from Hamby and laid it in right there. We'll get to the response on her not starting, folks. Don't worry. Bringing the ball down the court. This was later on in the game. Pull up, way downtown. Booyaka. Knocked it down.
A turnaround shot off the dribble, a move that, if it becomes a consistent part of her arsenal going into the WNBA season, will present a genuinely difficult read for opposing defenders. The toolkit on display was not that of a player being eased back cautiously from an absence. One notable pattern during the second and third quarters was the ball movement dynamic.
Knocked it down. No problem. Guys, I don't know when they're going to let her start. I really don't. I really don't. Watch this little, she's going to hit a little Michael Jordan turnaround here. That's going to be nice. She's going to drive, turn around, shoot the ball, bam. Three-pointer. If Caitlin Clark has that in her toolbox this year, folks, nasty ass work. That's going to be vicious. That is going to be vicious. That little turnaround, Jay.
When Clark received a pass and redistributed to a teammate, possessions tended not to cycle back to her. The ball would stall elsewhere, and Clark would go stretches without touches. That trend was particularly visible in the third quarter, where she barely featured for extended minutes despite the team's offense losing its rhythm.
That's going to be vicious. That is going to be vicious. That little turnaround, Jay. If she's got that in the toolbox right now, look out. Look out. Also, what you can look out for is USA basketball getting demolished. And something I noticed, let me tell you this. When they had the first game the other night against Senegal, they put the starting lineup out there like 45 minutes or an hour before the game. Well, after the backlash of Caitlin.
A separate detail worth noting, after the first game's starting lineup announcement generated significant backlash, USA Basketball shifted its approach. Where they had previously posted the starting five graphic roughly 45 minutes to an hour before tip-off, they began holding that announcement until after the opening tip. The timing adjustment was obvious and drew its own commentary.
The backlash of Caitlin Clark not starting in that game, they are not dropping this starting five graphic until right after tip-off now. They're waiting till the game is actually tipped off, and then they're dropping this on their Twitter feed. And my goodness, why are we starting the point fraud? So basically, I can miss the beginning of the game. Is CC the only one who hasn't?
The broader frustration among the viewing audience centers on a straightforward issue. Clark has, across 2 appearances, posted numbers and produced moments that would justify a starting role by any conventional basketball metric. She is the most recognizable player in the sport domestically, and the fan base that tuned into these qualifying games did so in significant part because of her presence.
So basically, I can miss the beginning of the game. Is CC the only one who hasn't started yet? Not surprised, really. It's funny you should bring that up. Rachel DeMitta. Only 2 players have not started for Team USA. Ray Burrell and Caitlin Clark. What? Yeah. That's where everybody noticed it. For the 3rd World Cup qualifying game in a row, Caitlin Clark not starting. That's my boy Johnny Root. It's unbelievable. It is.
Placing her in a reserve role for 3 consecutive games, particularly after she demonstrated in her very first appearance back that she was operating at a high-level runs against both competitive logic and the basic principles of audience engagement in televised sport. Only 2 players across the entire qualifying roster had not yet received a start heading into this game, Ray Burrell and Caitlin Clark. That is a hard fact, and it sits uncomfortably against the backdrop of Clark's statistical output and the visible impact she has had during her minutes.
It is unbelievable. At this point, it's rage bait. Ain't no way. Seriously, ain't no way. Seriously, CC not starting. Oh, yeah. What is that? Gordon Ramsay? Oh, Yeah, I'm blind. What is going on here? USA basketball is ridiculous. You are intentionally leaving out your best player as a starter. Yeah,
The venue and scheduling concerns from the first game carried over as well. The crowd situation did not significantly improve, and the atmosphere continued to feel mismatched with the stakes of the competition. These are correctable decisions. The starting lineup question, the scheduling, the setting, and they all compound each other in a way that undercuts what should be a high-profile moment for the national program.